today we have come again to take up yet another kingdom from the biological classification, that is your kingdom fungi. This kingdom is very important in the sense that it was in the beginning included under the kingdom Plantae when there was a two kingdom classification. But later on, when the composition of the cell wall was noticed, it was noticed that the cell wall of the fungus was not at all matching with the cell wall of the higher plants. So it needed a separation from that of the plants. And also, if you talk about the mode of nutrition, in case of fungus, the mode of nutrition was not at all autotrophic. Although it was stationary, it was not showing locomotion, and it was mistakenly taken as the organism belonging to the plant kingdom. But as later on, with the advent of electron microscopy, with the known of the chemical composition of the cell wall and many other things, that is the mode of nutrition, the cellular composition, everything when was taken into consideration, it was absolutely right to place it into a new kingdom, and this kingdom was your kingdom fungi. Now, as we have read in our previous chapters also regarding the characteristic features of the various kingdom, here also we are going to at first read about the characteristic features of the kingdom fungus. See, the first word which I have used here is they are achlorophyllous. In biology, whenever you find this word or a prefix with starting with A, so in that case it means absence of chlorophyll. So these organisms basically does not have chlorophyll. So if the organism does not have chlorophyll, definitely the mode of nutrition cannot be autotrophic. It has to be heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So that's the next point which I have underlined here with red, that is your heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Cell wall is made up of a chemical substance which is called chitin and various other polysaccharides. But the major component of the cell wall is your chitin. Okay, chitin, chitin, which is unlike that of the higher plants, because in case of higher plants we all know that is the cell wall is made up of cellulose. Next, the body is made up of thread-like structure. The body is actually filamentous. It is a multicellular organism except one member from this kingdom fungi, that is your Ascomycitis group. One fungus is there which is called as your yeast. Okay, the common name is yeast. So that organism is unicellular organism. So it belongs to fungus, but it is unicellular. So it is an exception in the kingdom fungi to be unicellular. Sometimes yeast shows budding. So when they perform the vegetative propagation by means of budding, the buds fail to detach. And when they fail to detach, they live into the parent body, forming a pseudomycelium-like structure. So what is this mycelium? The organism's body is made up of thread-like, fine thread-like structures. Now these fine thread-like structures are known as your hyphae, and plural is hyphae, and a network of this hyphae is called as your mycelium. Now as it is multinucleate, if we see it under the microscope, we can find that various group of fungus are there in which the that is nuclei, multinucleate condition is not separated by any kind of partition wall. It is all throughout. Lot of nuclei are freely suspended within the cytoplasm. So such condition is known as your cenocytic condition. So that is also found in case of some group of fungus, which we will be seeing when we will be reading about the various classes of fungi. Okay, next is about the reproduction. The fungus reproduces asexually also by means of your aplanospores, which are the non-motile spores, or by means of the zoospores. Okay, so which are the motile spores. And sexually also fungus reproduces. And how do they reproduce? That is a method which can be divided into three parts. The first one is called as your plasmogamy. That means where the two opposite strain hyphae. Okay, suppose if it is a plus strain hyphae, because here we cannot just say a fungus to be a male fungus and that of a female fungus. So suppose here there is a fungus which is plus strain and here which is a minus strain. That means oppositely strained fungus, but it has to be of the same species. Because without same species, how does the fertilization takes place, isn't it? And suppose if it is compartmentalized also, so make a compartment, and in this let us make the nuclei like this, Okay, so when they lie close to each other, just like that of bacteria, we have seen the conjugation. So in case of fungi also, two opposite strain mycelium of the fungus belonging to the same species come close to each other, and then what happens is that they protrude out a beak-like structure. So they will produce a beak-like structure. So when this beak-like structure is produced, the wall at the point of contact, it dissolves. So when the wall at the point of contact, it dissolves, then the two nuclei come closer to each other. Okay, let us make the other nuclei with red, then it will be more clearer to you. Okay, so the two nuclei come closer to each other. So this condition where the two oppositely strained, fungus come closer to each other, the first one is plasmogamy, that is fusion of the cytoplasm. The next stage is karyogamy, of course. In case of karyogamy, there is one stage which is not found in other organisms, which is called as your dikaryophase. Now what is this dikaryophase? Is normally we know that the two nuclei fuses in case of sexual reproduction, but prior to the fusion of the two nuclei, there is a phase in which the two opposite nuclei lie side by side. So this phase where the two nuclei are lying close to each other but they are not fusing with each other, this phase is known as your dikaryophase or dikaryon. It is known as that is the portion which contains the two opposite nuclei, and this phase is called dikaryophase. And after that, the two nuclei will fuse, and when the fusion will be completed, then they will form a kind of globular structure like this. Okay, where there will be the two nuclei which has fused together, and this two nuclei which has fused together, now they will undergo meiosis, and then they will form a lot of spores. Okay, now this is called as your zygospores, when this will be multiplying and they will be producing spores inside it due to meiosis. So if it is due to meiosis, all the nuclei which will be produced here, it will be your haploid, and they will be produced within a structure which is called as your sporangium or zygosporangium. And now when they will be liberated, when they will fall into suitable substratum, and then they will be germinating into again the plus strain or the minus strain hyphae, and again will be leading a vegetative first propagation of vegetative life and followed by that of the sexual life. So this is the asexual or the sexual type of reproduction in case of fungus. Next is that depending upon the spore formation, whether the spores are formed as a result of sexual reproduction or asexual reproduction, whether the mycelium is septate, that means having partition walls like this, or whether it is aseptate, that means sinusotic condition, and the fruiting bodies. The fungus forms the fruiting bodies inside which the spores are produced. So depending upon that, the fungus is further classified. The kingdom fungus or fungi is further classified into classes. Okay, now what are these classes? There are total of 4 classes. First one is Phycomycetes, next is Ascomycitis, next is Basidiomycetes, and last one is your Deuteromycetes. Now one by one we will be taking upon this Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes and Deuteromycetes. Now Phycomycetes are the primitive kind of fungi. These are generally, the common example is your mucor or rhizopus. You know this fungus very well. The reason is because it is known as your bread mold, and you have come across this fungus in your home whenever there is any stale bread kept for a long time in a moist place. The bread develops a cottony outgrowth, that is a fungal mycelium, and that will result into sporulation after a few days. They will form kind of spores which can be aplanospores, or which can be your zoospores, and when these spores they that is your fall into again suitable substratum, they are capable of germination. These organisms which are belonging to Phycomycetes, they are aseptate. They show sinusotic mode of mycelium, that is the mycelium is not having any septation, so the multinucleate condition, that is the nuclei are freely suspended within the cytoplasm of the cell, and they are economically important because economic importance of various kingdoms we have to read. So economic importance, here I am talking about the harmful effect of this Phycomycetes. Phycomycetes causes diseases of various plants because they are affecting our crop plants. You might have heard about Irish famine. Okay, Irish famine, it took place in 1945, and as a result of which the total potato production of Ireland was badly affected, and that was because of a disease which is called as your late blight of potato. So that disease was caused by the fungus which is Phytophthora infestans. So Phytophthora infestans is the, you can say, the causal organism for the destruction of the potato crop during 1945, which caused a Irish famine, and the entire potato because that was a staple food of the people of the Ireland. So much devastation took place that year about the potato plantation and the crops that people were affected very badly. Okay. So that is the harmfulness of this organism, that is your Phycomycetes. It grows in damp places, that is, it can grow in the dead, that is your leaves, it can grow in the, that is your dead twigs, wooden logs and all those things. So that is the organisms belonging to Phycomycetes. It also shows sexual reproduction by the formation of zoospores. So these are the characteristics belonging to the that is the members belonging to the group called as your Phycomycetes. Next is Ascomycitis. Now why this name Ascomycetes have been given is that the fruiting body of this fungus is ascus. Okay, it's like a cup shaped structure or saucer shaped structure. These are saprophytic in their mode of nutrition, and they generally are growing on the dead and decaying substances. Some of them are able to grow even in the dung, animal dung. So coprophilous, they are called coprophilous fungus also. Pisaisa is one such coprophilous fungus belonging to Ascomycetes. And as I told you in the beginning only, that the yeast is a fungus, but it is a unicellular fungus, an exception because fungus are multicellular. That yeast belongs to the Ascomycetes group. That means they will form the ascus, and inside this they have the ascospores. Okay, that is when the sexual reproduction takes place, the formation of spores which are taking place as a result of your meiosis. They are called as your ascospores. So ascus bearing ascospores. So that is why those fungus belong to this group of your Ascomycetes. So yeast, as you know, economically it is how much important, because it is used in the alcohol industry, it is also used in the bakery industry. So that is the usefulness of the organisms belonging to the class, that is your Ascomycetes. Penicillium is obtained from the Penicillium notatum, the first wonder drug which was used during the World War II to cure the patients, and that is how the discovery of the that is antibiotics was done, and then the more and more microorganisms were found to have this kind of effect, that is positive effect on the body of the human beings to fight against the various kinds of microorganisms. Next is your Basidiomycetes. Now Basidiomycetes name has come from Basidium. Okay, that means these organisms fruiting body are, you have seen it, every one of us, we have seen it, umbrella like structures. Fungus are growing, especially during the rainy season, we are seeing it growing in some damp places, growing over sometimes on the dead wood or some even on the soil also they are growing. And the very interesting thing is that the organisms belonging to Basidiomycetes, not all fungus are not edible, but most of the edible fungus belongs to the class which is called Basidiomycetes. One such good example is your agaricus. Agaricus is known as your button mushroom, and it is highly nutritious, it is very tasty, and it doesn't have fat in it. It has a lot of protein, and which is important for our body, that is, it contains essential amino acids which is important. So people who want to have weight loss yet have some delicious dishes, they can try for that of the fungus like that of your agaricus or pleurotus, which belongs to that of the Basidiomycetes. Basidium is a structure in which the basidiospores are produced as a result of meiosis. Although these organisms also reproduces asexually by means of your conidia, that is conidiophore is there. Conidiophore is a vegetative branch. After growing sometimes it becomes vertical, and the tip of the hypha becomes swollen, and there it undergoes the process of mitosis, because here it is asexual reproduction resulting into formation of lot of spores. So that is called as your conidia, or bearing the conidium or the conidia, and they are produced on a particular structure which is containing in them, and the branch which contains it is known as your conidiophore. So that is all the asexual part of the Basidiomycetes. And basidium, basidiospore, or that umbrella like structure in which these basidiospores or the basidium are located, separated as a result of meiosis. When the spores are produced, haploid spores are produced, they are called as your that is the fruiting body of the organisms belonging to the Basidiomycetes. Examples I told you, that is example is agaricus, example is your morels, okay, example is your pleurotus, so many are there. And of course the dikaryophase, which we have seen, the mycelium is septate. Here also I forgot to tell you, the mycelium is septate only in Phycomycetes, since it's a primitive fungus, so it does not have a septate hyphae. Last one is your Deuteromycetes. Now Deuteromycetes is also known as fungi imperfecti. Now why it is known as fungi imperfecti? Because in these three classes of fungus, sexual phase of the life cycle is found along with the asexual phase, but the organisms belonging to this Deuteromycetes, their perfect stage, that is the sexual stage or the sexual reproduction part, is not found. So since it is not found and it is only reproducing by means of asexual reproduction, so as a result of it, they have been placed in this class of Deuteromycetes. Once the perfect stage is identified, that means once the sexual phase of these organisms is found by the scientists, then according to what type of fruiting body or what type of spores they are producing, they are shifted to that of your Basidiomycetes, Ascomycitis or Phycomycetes. Understood? So it's not that their sexual reproduction, they do not do sexual reproduction. It is that they have not been identified. It can be that the phase of the asexual phase of the organisms belonging to Deuteromycetes, which has been found, maybe the sexual stage of that organism could have been found in some other group of other classes of fungus. There is the relation yet to be established. So once the relation is established between the asexual and the sexual phase of the organism, then the organism belonging to the Deuteromycetes is shifted either to Ascomycetes if they are bearing ascus. If they are bearing basidium, then they will be shifted to Basidiomycetes or Ascomycetes, or they can be shifted to that of your Phycomycetes. These organisms also cause a loss of crops because they are affecting the crop plants badly. As I told you, that is your late blight of potato caused by this Phycomycetes group of fungus. One member of the Phycomycetes group of fungus. Similarly, there is another disease of potato which is known as your early blight of potato. Now early blight of potato is caused by Alternaria solani, which is an organism belonging to Deuteromycetes. Okay, so many kind of diseases are there which is caused by the organisms belonging to Deuteromycetes. Also there is organism belonging to that of your Deuteromycetes, which is called as your Colitotrichum. Now this Colitotrichum is the fungus belonging to Deuteromycetes, which is capable of causing a disease in case of sugarcane plants. You might have seen when the sugarcane stems which you are taking or eating rather, so when you just peel off the skin of the sugarcane, you will find some red color streaks are there inside it, isn't it? So that is because of the fungus which is belonging to this Deuteromycetes, which causes the disease that is called as your red rot of sugarcane. Okay, so that red rot of sugarcane is caused by that Colitotrichum falcatum. Okay, so Colitotrichum is written in your book, you just read that name, that Colitotrichum causes the red rot of sugarcane. And also Trichoderma is another fungus which is discussed under this Deuteromycetes in your book, which is a kind of very much important. It is a kind of, you can say, fungicide. That means it has a capability of killing the other harmful fungus growing in the soil, because fungi can live everywhere, isn't it? It can live in water, it can live in soil, it can live in air. The spores are light, so it can be easily inhaled, and people are allergic to the spores of the fungus. So the Trichoderma, which resides in the soil, because it is a soil-borne fungus, so what it does is that it enters into the mycelium of the other harmful fungus which can affect our crops and kill them. So without the application of any external chemical fungicide, if you just use the Trichoderma powder in your crop fields or in even the flower pots which you are growing in your home, then the soil residing harmful fungus can be killed by the help of that Trichoderma powder. So this is the four classes of the that is your fungus kingdom fungi, which we have studied today, and the economic importance also side by side I have discussed. And besides this, overall, if you talk about the importance of the kingdom fungi, many important things like the medicines, antibiotics are developed from the organisms like penicillium. Also, I forgot to tell you, there is an organism which is called as your neurospora. Now, neurospora is a material or is a fungus which is extensively studied in terms of genetical studies. The reason is because it has less chromosome number. So, any organism which has less chromosome number, scientists like that organism to work upon, because if the more chromosome numbers are there, so to keep a record it is difficult. So, neurospora forms an excellent genetical material to be studied, which is again belonging to the kingdom fungi. Fungi are excellent decomposers, so they help in decomposing the substances. So these are the they are edible. There are some edible mushrooms which we are eating. So these are the various kinds of economic importance belonging to the kingdom fungi. So that's all for today's studies. Have a nice day.